Alright, so I went ahead and erased a bunch of stuff, and then I put in some basic values. Again, thinking about light coming in from this direction. So now we can play with playing the shadows a little bit. That's where you want to start your coloration. You don't want to start in the lit areas. You want to start in the shadows. And we begin with what's called the shade of a color. A shade of a color is where you add dark to a color. And if we keep in mind which direction our light's coming in at all time, and which direction the light's coming in, then we can really start to hopefully generate some form to this dragon of ours. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and add some, you can't hardly see it, but I'm adding some green into the gray. But again, only in the shaded areas. Okay, if we color everything, we're going to flatten our drawing, and we don't want to do that. So just layer by layer, right? One step at a time. Just want to bring in we just want to bring in our colors in a very, very subtle manner. Now, I'm working on vellum, and when you're working on vellum, things stick. So I'm gonna keep everything real light, and right now I'm just adding a bit of yellow to, again, kind of enhance that green. But I start with my colors that are of a lighter suspension, so like a willow green. Now I'm using a yellow, and only working in the shadows. Okay, anything outside the shadows where we have light touching something, then we start to think about the tint of a color, and the tint of a color is where you add light to a color. All right, but for right now, we're just thinking about what's in the darker areas. Okay, and we'll get to the deeper dark sooner than later. Now I can get back in and in my most recessed areas, really start to enhance and intensify my colors. So again, staying in the shade, staying in the shadows. I'm using some design markers. I prefer the Chartpak ad markers, but a lot of people like the Prismacolors or Copic. Those are all great choices. All right. Some are alcohol based, some are xylene based. The xylene based are pretty pungent. They really have quite the smell to them. But now we're starting to get into getting some more color going. All right. Okay. So nice and kind of nice and subtle, I guess, to begin with, and then again, as we get further and further along, we start to put in more intense colors. Now, speaking of more intensities, next to your objects, your subject matter, your shadows can be very intense and then fade away, unless you're doing some really theatrical lighting, which is then you have some very pinpointed looking shadows. So I'm just thinking about the color underneath, so kind of thinking about maybe some stone in here. And so when I think about stone, I think about kind of making stone-like marks. But people are asking, how do you draw this? How do you draw that? How do you draw that? Well, it's how the stone feels, and also the direction, right? I'm coming from my vanishing points, and that'll help kind of give it some. I might even put some of that sepia tone and the dragon. This is called color jumping, where you bring things out and above. All right. From here, we could start to intensify our inks a little bit. And so I'm coming back in with the black. And again, we're going for that detail now. So that's going to take a little bit of time, and I'll probably finish up some of that in the intermission. And then we'll continue on with textures and so on and so forth. All right. Thanks.